Welcome back everyone to the weekly Mailbox, your chance to ask me questions about absolutely anything you like. Today is episode 24. Next week, episode 25 lands on Christmas Day, just a week away folks, so hopefully you're all having a brilliant holidays, but also next week for your questions, I want some festive ones if we can do that. I've asked the last couple of weeks for some and I'm getting a little pile ready, but a little bit more of a fun and relaxed episode next week. But don't worry, today is all pretty much Formula 1 focused, so strap yourselves in and get ready. Of course, if you're new around here, feel free to subscribe, but let's jump in to question 1. And today we're going to do zero messing. We're going to jump right into the hard-hitting questions. Who has been your driver of the season in 2019? Now, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, but this is something that, although I'm doing my daily kind of driver review series, I've not actually answered this question up front. I've never really tackled it head on as such. There's a few names that I think are definitely in the mix. I'm looking straight away, the one that I think a lot of people will most likely go for, and I think I'm perhaps leaning a little bit more towards, is Carlos Sainz. He's a driver that over the course of 2019 was almost perfect, I would say. And when you consider that the end of last season, 2018, I know that was a little while ago now, I think there was quite a lot of criticism about Carlos Sainz and whether it was sensible for him to go to McLaren and for McLaren to sign him up. I think people were, rightly so, a little bit worried. But straight away, I mean, Bahrain is one that sticks out in my brain. He didn't finish that Grand Prix, actually, but there was a time early on where he was fighting for the podium with Max Verstappen, actually made contact with Verstappen on that particular day. But apart from that, most Grand Prix he's been at the front of that midfield in qualifying and the race, and in races where he started at the back of the grid because of penalties and mechanical issues on Saturday or whatever it is, Austria and Brazil are the two that stick out in my mind. Austria, P20, all the way up to P5, Brazil, P20 to the podium, of course scored his first podium in Formula 1, so Sainz has had an incredible season. You can't forget Lewis Hamilton, 6-time world champion. Is it 11 victories? It was in the end, scored points in every single Grand Prix, finished every single Grand Prix, the only driver to do that in 2019. 17 podiums out of 21. They're ridiculous statistics. It wasn't, I don't think it was his best season in Formula 1, at least on a Saturday, I think it's fair enough to say. Only 5 pole positions. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on Lewis Hamilton, I did a video, I think it was a couple of days ago now, my full season review, so I don't want to give away too much of that, but I think there's, don't get me wrong, I mean, these kind of things that I'm picking out are so minute. I'm really nitpicking at some of these drivers because Hamilton, once again, has smashed it. The points gap has been insane, but perhaps, like I say, that the qualifying perhaps wasn't as good, but maybe that's down to the car. I don't know, but racecraft has been insane from Lewis Hamilton this year. Probably the best racing Hamilton I've probably ever seen. I think it's fair enough. Max Verstappen, another one that we just cannot forget, blimey. I think his second half of the year wasn't quite as good as that first half of the year. I think I went into the summer break actually, and at my mid-season driver reviews, I gave this man a 10 out of 10. I thought he was that good in the first half of the year. And when you consider the dramatic change, I think it's probably a little bit understated now at the end of the season, but the major change, bringing in Honda, taking out Renault, and that whole transformational internal change that Red Bull had to go through, Verstappen didn't prove any of that on the track, was brilliant at overtaking, multiple Grand Prix victories, finally got his first couple of pole positions. He was super this year, and in races where people fell apart in Germany and Brazil, he won those 2 Grand Prix. So definitely, they're the 3 drivers I think deserve the most recognition. But again, you can pick a whole host of drivers. I think Bottas has had a much better year. Albon's been a real surprise. Norris. George Russell, that 21-0 was pretty awesome. Perez had a really good second half of the season. But I think I would give it to Carlos Sainz. I really would. When you consider where McLaren were 12 months ago, when you consider where this man was, and the minuscule amount of mistakes he has made, my vote goes to Carlos Sainz. But again, Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, all of those guys, definitely you can make a brilliant case for. Right, let's move on to question 2, I think. Comes from Jack K. E20. Maybe that's just K. Anyway, comes from Jack, is an easier way of saying it. Which midfield team poses the biggest threat in 2021? I think I've kind of answered a similar kind of thing before, but I wanted to revisit it. Now we're at the end of 2019, and now we've had a bigger picture. I think I answered it maybe in the summer break, and I think since the summer break, there's been a real twist in the midfield, and I've said it all year long, actually. That midfield has been almost flipping on its head almost each weekend. One weekend, Haas will be looking brilliant in qualifying, qualify best of the rest. And then in the race, it's Racing Point, who went out in Q1, that end up with the big points. It was a brilliant fight this year in the midfield. But for 2021, Renault, there's a few question marks whether they're going to stay in Formula 1 or not, but I think they have a good chance with all the resources they have. McLaren have a brilliant driver lineup, so do Renault actually as well. That's definitely a big factor. But McLaren, the strides they've made this year, I expect them to continue. Though it does have to be said that before this year, they weren't looking too great. So it's maybe they'll just focus on next year. Maybe they'll just forget next year in 2021. We don't know just yet. But I think McLaren could be good. Racing Point as well, their second half of the year, if they had that car the entire year, I definitely think would it be in the fight for best of the rest. That transition period becoming Racing Point, potentially Aston Martin as well next year, which could be fun. I think that's got a lot of promise. And actually, no bias, I promise, Haas F1, when I consider that 2021, Haas, their model is buying parts from Ferrari. If Ferrari get 2021 right, Haas will have those new parts, and potentially they could spring up to the midfield and maybe even be contending for a podium here or there. I don't know, but I think McLaren and Racing Point are going to be the two I'm going to go with. Question number 3 comes from Crash K Enterprises. Like this one. I like this one a lot. Do you think Grosjean can outrun Magnussen in the last season before the car redesign in 2021? I haven't really spoke about Grosjean much since the season ended. I just wanted to make sure that I was getting my thoughts collected, make sure I didn't say anything silly. I don't think that year's been as bad as a lot of people would say, but I want to try and save some of that for my end of year review, because I want to make that one a good one if I possibly can. But plenty of you have seen my K-Mag video, which I didn't expect, but the car's been a bit of a dog this year. I think that's a massive understatement, what I've just said as well. It's been god-awful in 2019. Next season, and I think actually, if you look at this season, very easily, if the tyres hadn't fallen off Grosjean's car in that first race of the season, they're very, very close in the championship standings. If there wasn't that incident in Spain, Grosjean would have got more points than Magnussen, and it would have been very, very close. So overall in 2019, I feel they were quite similar in pace at the end as well. And when you look at the head-to-heads as well, they're not a million miles away. There's not massive gaps like there are at other teams. So I feel they're a good match. Next year, I really do believe this, like this season, I think it'll just be one result. It'll be one weekend where either of the drivers... So to answer the question, yes, I think potentially Grosjean could finish in front of K-Mag, but it'll be that one weekend where one of them doesn't have reliability issues, qualifying goes well, and the car actually works, which is something that has not happened on a regular basis in 2019. But I think it's possible. Whether Grosjean can keep his seat for 2021 is another question, but I think it's a fight that he's definitely really going to have to bring early doors and prove he deserves a chance. But I'm looking forward to that battle for sure next season. You've seen the next question on your screen for a couple of seconds. Question 4 comes from Extreme Gaming. Thoughts on some of the Formula 2 teams and their new driver lineups? Now, I've been somewhat critical of this year's driver lineups. I definitely don't think it's been the strongest of grids in 2019. Don't get me wrong, De Vries, he didn't destroy the competition, but comfortably won the championship in the end, and I feel definitely deserved a chance in Formula E, and potentially could have earned a drive in Formula 1. I think he definitely warranted and proved he deserved a chance. Latifi, of course, has moved up to Formula 1, so we'll have to wait and see. However, next year, I think it's looking good. We've got the Formula 3 champion, who I rate super, super highly, Robert Schwartzman. He is going to be quick. We've got his teammate who finished up, well, runner-up actually last year in Formula 3, Marcus Armstrong. He's moving to ART, where De Vries won the championship last year. We've got HWA, kind of like a Mercedes junior team, not really. They've got Giuliano Alesi, so Jean Alesi's son, but also Artem Markelov, a proven race winner in Formula 2. We've got Mick Schumacher again. He's at Prema alongside Robert Schwartzman. Callum Ilott, another one in the Ferrari junior team. He's in Formula 2 as well. We can't forget Dan Ticktum. I know he's a very controversial figure in the world of motorsports. I think he's a bit of a character, and I think sometimes we're missing that in modern motorsports. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do and what he can stir up in the paddock next season. But they're the only confirmed ones. We've still got plenty of other drivers that I think definitely warrant another chance. I think a lot of you will want me to mention Jack Aitken. He's had a strong season, definitely improved from the year before. So I think even of just the list of drivers we've got already, I think we're going to have a brilliant season. I really do. In that Ferrari Junior Academy, we've got Armstrong, Alesi, Schumacher, Schwartzman and Ilott. Just those 5 drivers alone, I think it's going to be brilliant to see. Throw in Markelov, throw in Ticktum, and already we've got a mega season on the cards. And the final question, a bit of a cop-out because we've had it already, but final question, question 5. I always like to throw it to you guys, throw it to the audience. And I've asked you the title question, the one I answered right at the beginning of the video. Who has been your driver of the season in 2019? Maybe it's someone a little bit left field, someone who doesn't quite get as much love as other drivers. Maybe it's a Georgie Russell. Maybe it's a big Robbo Kubica. Maybe it's a Sergio Perez. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. But like I said earlier, for me, Sainz has been super, super good. Hamilton has been right up there. Verstappen has been right up there. Even Porridge Man. Valtteri Bottas 2.0, I think he's really made a big step up this year, but it depends really on what your criteria is for driver of the season. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Rookie of the year as well. That's one that I probably should have asked myself as well. I'll leave that for another day, but Rookie of the year as well would be, I'd love to know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Albon maybe edges it. Albon and Norris, I don't know, because... I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. That's it from me. I've said my piece on 4 questions this week. But next time, the Christmas special. I'd love to know your festive questions. They don't have to be motorsports based. Don't worry. Just the sillier the better is what I'm kind of going for. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe if you're new. And I understand at the moment, Formula 1, we're missing it. We need a bit of Formula 1. We need our baby. So if you just itching for a little bit more of Formula 1, then you know where to go. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.